The morning sun of Kepler 442b cast strange purple light through the tall windows of Galactic Academy. Hanna walked down the marble hallway, her small bag hanging over her shoulder. The other students towered above her. Most were twice her height, with long, graceful limbs and smooth skin that looked like it had never seen a scratch. Hanna felt very small among them. She was only 19 years old and far from home. Earth was millions of light years away, and everything here was different. The air smelled clean, too clean. There was no smell of rain or dirt or growing things. Even the plants in the hallway looked fake, with perfect leaves that never fell. She stopped at the door of her first class. Through the glass, she could see students sitting in comfortable chairs that floated above the ground. Their desks were made of some kind of clear material that glowed softly. Everything looked expensive and delicate. "You must be the new Deathworld." "Student," said a voice behind her. Hanna turned around. A tall boy with blue-gray skin stood there. His eyes were large and dark, and his face was long and narrow. He wore the same white uniform as everyone else, but his had small golden decorations on the shoulders. "I am Crix Veltar," he said, looking down at her. "My family owns the largest trading company in this sector. You are from Earth, correct?" "Yes," Hanna said quietly. "I am Hanna." Crix smiled, but it was not a kind smile. "How interesting. I have read about your planet, Class 12 Deathworld, if I remember correctly. Everything there tries to kill you, yes?" Other students had gathered. Around them now, they whispered to each other and stared at Hanna like she was something strange in a museum. "Earth is not that bad," Hanna said. "We have beautiful places, too." "Of course," Crix said. "I am sure your caves and mud huts are very nice." The other students laughed. Hanna felt her face grow hot, but she said nothing. Her grandmother had always told her to be polite, especially when she was a guest. The classroom door opened, and a teacher appeared. She was even taller than the students, with silver skin and no hair at all. Her eyes were completely black. "Please take your seats," the teacher said. Her voice was soft and musical. "We have a new student today, Miss Hanna from Earth." Hanna walked into the classroom and found an empty seat. The chair was too big for her, and her feet did not touch the ground. She tried to adjust it, but she could not figure out how the controls worked. "Having trouble?" asked a voice next to her. Hanna looked over and saw another human student. He had black hair and kind eyes. He was also small compared to the aliens, but he looked comfortable in his chair. "I am Park Min-ho," he said quietly. "I have been here for 6 months. Here, let me help you." He showed her how to make the chair smaller and lower. Soon Hanna was sitting comfortably, though she still felt out of place. "Thank you," she whispered. "No problem," Min-ho said. "It gets easier. Just remember, they think we are primitive, but that does not make it true." The teacher began the lesson. She talked about different types of planets and how life developed on each one. When she came to Death Worlds, she used Earth as an example. "Planets like Earth are very rare," the teacher explained. "The conditions are so dangerous that most species would die within hours. High gravity, poisonous atmosphere, extreme weather, and predatory life forms make survival nearly impossible." She showed pictures of Earth on a large screen. There were images of storms, volcanoes, and wild animals. The alien students gasped and made disgusted sounds. "The species that evolve on such planets are usually very primitive," the teacher continued. "They must spend all their time just trying to stay alive. They have no time for art, science, or culture." Hanna raised her hand. "Excuse me, Professor?" The teacher looked surprised. "Yes? Humans do have art and science and culture," Hanna said. "We have music and books and paintings. We built spaceships to travel between stars. We have cities with millions of people." The classroom was very quiet. Some students looked confused, as if they could not understand how primitive people could do such things. Of course, dear, the teacher said in a patient voice, like she was talking to a small child. I am sure your people do their best, but compared to truly civilized species, your achievements are quite basic. Crix laughed loudly. Yes, I have. Seen pictures of human cities, all those ugly buildings crowded together. And the noise! How can anyone think with all that chaos? Our cities are different from yours, Hana said, but they work for us. I suppose when you come from caves, anything seems advanced, Crix said. More students laughed. Hana felt her hands clench into fists under her desk. On Earth, if someone talked to you like this, there would be consequences. But this was not Earth. This was a civilized place where people talked through problems instead of fighting. After class, Hana met another human student named Kim Sora. Sora had been at the academy for a year and knew how things worked. Do not let them get to you, Sora said as they walked to lunch. They think we are animals who learn to wear clothes. The best thing to do is ignore them. It is hard, Hana said. On Earth, we do not let people talk to us like that. This is not Earth, Sora reminded her. Here, if you hit someone, you get expelled and sent home. The Academy has a zero-tolerance policy for violence. They think physical fighting is what primitives do. At lunch, Hana sat with Minho and Sora. The food was strange, all soft and smooth with no real taste. She missed the spicy, rich food from home. How do you eat this? She asked. You get used to it, Minho said. Everything here is made to be safe and easy to digest. No one ever gets sick from food poisoning. On Earth, getting a little sick makes your immune system stronger, Hana said. That is exactly the kind of thing they think is primitive, Sora said. Here, they prevent all problems instead of learning to deal with them. Across the cafeteria, Hana could see Crix sitting with his friends. They kept looking at her and laughing. She tried to ignore them, but it was difficult. He will get bored eventually, Minho said, noticing where she was looking. Crix likes to pick on new students, but he usually moves on to someone else after a few weeks. Hana hoped Minho was right. She had come to the academy to learn, not to fight. But she was starting to understand that some lessons could not be learned from books. The rest of the day passed slowly. In every class, Hana felt the eyes of other students on her. Some looked curious, others looked disgusted. None looked friendly, except for Minho and Sora. As she walked back to her room that evening, Hana thought about home. Earth might be dangerous, but at least their people were honest about their feelings. Here, everyone smiled and spoke politely, but their eyes said different things. She looked out her window at the perfect purple sunset. Everything on this planet was beautiful and safe and calm. But Hana was beginning to think that maybe some things were too safe for their own good. 3 weeks had passed since Hana arrived at Galactic Academy. She was getting better at using the floating chairs and glowing desks, but she still felt like a stranger in a strange land. The other students had stopped staring at her all the time, but they had not started being friendly either. Crix Veltar had not gotten bored with her like Minho had hoped. Instead, he seemed to enjoy making comments about humans every chance he got. His friends always laughed when he did it, which made him do it more. Today was advanced xenobiology class with Professor Zethkol. The professor was a crystalline, a species that looked like they were made of living glass. When he moved, light bounced off his body in pretty patterns. Today we will discuss planetary classifications and how they affect the evolution of intelligent life, Professor Zethkol announced. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. He turned on the big screen at the front of the room. Pictures of different planets appeared, some covered in water, others with purple skies, and some that looked like giant crystals. As you know, planets are classified from Class 1 to Class 12 based on how dangerous they are to life, the professor explained. Class 1 planets are paradise worlds where nothing harmful exists. Class 12 planets are death worlds where everything tries to kill you. A picture of Earth appeared on the screen. It looked beautiful from space, blue and white with swirling clouds, but the professor made it sound like a nightmare. Earth is our best example of a Class 12 death world, he said. The gravity is crushing. The atmosphere is filled with poison gases. Storms can destroy entire cities. Wild animals hunt and eat each other constantly. The alien students made sounds of disgust and fear. Some covered their eyes when pictures of Earth's animals appeared on the screen. The species that evolve on such worlds are naturally savage, Professor Zethkol continued. They must fight constantly just to survive. This makes them strong but also violent and primitive. They solve problems with force instead of intelligence. Hana raised her hand. Professor, may I say something? The professor looked surprised but nodded. Of course, Miss Lee. Hana stood up. All the other students turned to look at her. Earth is dangerous, but it is also beautiful. We have forests and mountains and oceans full of life. Yes, we have predators, but we also have animals that are gentle and peaceful. But surely you must admit that your species is more violent than civilized races, the professor said. Humans can be violent when we need to protect ourselves or others, Hana said. But we are also kind. We take care of our children and elderly. We make art and music. We help each other during disasters. Crix stood up from his seat. Please, Professor, let me tell her about the real galaxy. The professor nodded, and Crix walked to the front of the room like he owned it. His uniform was cleaner and more expensive than everyone else's, and he moved like he knew everyone was, watching him. Miss Lee, I think you misunderstand what civilization means, Crix said with a condescending smile. My people, the Veltarians, have not had a war in over 1,000 years. We solve our problems with words, not weapons. That is very good, Hana said politely. Yes, it is, Crix continued. We have created art that can make people cry with beauty. Our cities float in the sky like dreams. Our children never know fear, or hunger, or pain. Some of the alien students nodded in agreement. They looked at Hana like they felt sorry for her. Your people, on the other hand, Crix said, his voice getting louder, live in dirty cities on the ground. You fight wars over scraps of land. Your children grow up learning to hurt others. You are barely one step above wild animals. That is not true, Hana said, but her voice was quiet. Is it not? Crix asked. Tell me, Miss Lee, how many wars is your planet fighting right now? Hana hesitated. Earth did have conflicts, though they were getting less common as humans learned to work together better. I thought so, Crix said triumphantly. And tell me, do humans not kill and eat other animals? Yes, but... There you are, Crix said. Savage behavior. My people have not eaten meat in 2,000 years. We grow our food in laboratories, clean, peaceful, civilized. More students nodded. Even Professor Zethkol looked like he agreed with Crix. Your people might have learned to copy our technology, Crix continued, but that does not make you civilized. You are still Deathworld animals playing dress-up. Hana felt her face turn red. On Earth, if someone said things like this, they would be asking for a fight. But here, she had to stay calm and polite. Humans are not animals, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Of course you are, Crix said with a laugh. Look at you. Small, weak, covered in hair. You even show your teeth when you are angry, like a predator warning others to stay away. Hana realized she was grinding her teeth and forced herself to stop. Minho started to stand up. Crix, that is enough. Sit down, human, Crix snapped. I am not finished. He turned back to Hana. The only reason your species was allowed into the galactic community was pity. We felt sorry for you, living on your terrible world, fighting over scraps. We thought maybe we could teach you to be better. We do not need you to teach us anything, Hana said. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides. "Look at you right now," Crix said with delight. "Ready to attack me just because I told you the truth. This is exactly what I mean. Civilized people do not solve problems with violence." Professor Zethkol stepped forward. "Perhaps we should return to the lesson." "No, this is educational," Crix said. "Everyone should see what Deathworld primitives are really like when they are angry." Sora whispered urgently to Hana, "Do not do anything stupid. Remember the rules." But Hana was not thinking about rules anymore. She was thinking about how Crix smiled while he insulted her people. How he acted like he was better than her because he came from a safe, easy world where nothing bad ever happened. "My people," she said slowly, "have survived things that would kill everyone on this planet." "Yes, because you are animals," Crix said. "Animals are good at surviving, but survival is not the same as civilization." "Maybe not," Hana said. "But I think there is something wrong with a civilization that makes people weak and scared of everything." The room was very quiet now. Even Professor Zethkol seemed interested in what she would say next. "Your people are proud that you have never been in a war," Hana continued. "But what happens when someone decides to attack you? Your people are proud that your children never know fear. But what happens when something frightening actually comes to your world?" "Nothing frightening would dare come to our world," Crixie said, but he sounded less sure now. "You think you are safe because you have never been tested," Hana said. "But safety that has never been tested is not real safety. It is just luck." Crix's face changed. The smile was gone, and his eyes looked angry. "How dare you say that to me? My people are the greatest civilization in the galaxy." "Greatest at what?" Hana asked. "Being comfortable?" That was when Crix made his first real mistake. Instead of walking away or telling the professor to stop the conversation, he decided to hurt Hana with words. "At least my people know their place," he said, coldly. "We do not pretend to be equals with our betters. We do not come to civilized worlds and embarrass ourselves by opening our mouths about things we do not understand." Hana took a step forward. The movement was small, but several alien students gasped and moved back. "I think," she said very quietly, "that you should be careful what you say next." Crix looked around the room and saw that everyone was watching. His friends were waiting to see what he would do. If he backed down now, he would look weak. So he made his second mistake. "Or what?" he asked with a cruel smile. "You will show your true nature and attack me like the savage animal you are?" The room was completely silent. Even the soft humming of the air system seemed to stop. Hana looked at Crix for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a nice smile. "No," she said. "I will wait." She turned and walked back to her seat, but everyone in the room could feel that something had changed. The polite, quiet human girl was gone. Something else was looking out of Hana's eyes now, something that knew how to wait for the right moment. 2 days after the argument in xenobiology class, Hana tried to focus on her studies. But everywhere she went, she could feel eyes watching her. Some students looked curious, others looked scared. Crix's friends whispered and pointed when they thought she was not looking. Crix himself seemed to think he had won something. He walked around the academy with his chest puffed out, talking louder than usual about human primitives and Deathworld savages. His friends laughed at everything he said, which made him even more confident. Hana ignored it all. She went to her classes, ate her tasteless food, and did her homework. Minho and Sora worried about her because she was so quiet. But she told them she was fine. She was not fine. She was thinking. On Earth, bullies like Crix learned quickly that their words had consequences. Someone would eventually get tired of their behavior and teach them a lesson. But here at the academy, the rules protected people like Crix. He could say whatever he wanted because he knew no one would hit him. The academy was very proud of its zero-tolerance policy for violence. In over 200 years, no student had ever been seriously hurt by another student. The administrators thought this proved how civilized their students were. They did not understand that some people are only civilized because they know what happens when they are not. On Thursday morning, Hannah walked into her advanced physics laboratory class. The lab was full of expensive equipment that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. Gravity field generators hummed quietly on every table. Holographic displays showed complex equations floating in the air. Professor Velnox was a tall, thin alien with purple skin and 6 arms. She could operate multiple pieces of equipment at the same time, which was very useful in a physics lab. "Today you will work in groups of 4, Professor Velnox announced. "You will use the gravity field generators to create a stable micro-wormhole. This is a very delicate process, so please be careful with the equipment." Hannah was assigned to work with Minho, a quiet alien student named Thies, and unfortunately, Crix. When she saw his name on her group assignment, her stomach tightened. "How wonderful," Crix said with false enthusiasm. "I get to work with the Deathworld primitive. Try not to break anything with your clumsy animal hands." Thies looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Minho frowned but also stayed quiet. They both knew that arguing with Crix would only make things worse. The project required them to calibrate 3 gravity field generators to work together perfectly. It was like trying to balance 3 spinning plates on sticks while riding a bicycle. One small mistake could ruin weeks of work. Hannah focused on her part of the assignment. She was actually very good at delicate work. Growing up on Earth meant learning to be precise under pressure. When everything around you was dangerous, you learned to be careful, or you got hurt. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. The gravity fields were holding steady, and their micro-wormhole was beginning to form. It was beautiful. A tiny tear in space that looked like a diamond made of starlight. Then Crix got bored. "I still cannot believe they let Deathworlders into advanced classes," he said loudly enough for other groups to hear. "This work requires a delicate touch. One wrong move from primitive hands and—" "Crix, please be quiet," Minho said. "I am trying to concentrate." "Oh, I am sorry," Crix said. "Am I disturbing your friend's animal instincts? Maybe she needs complete silence to think, like a predator hunting prey." Hannah did not respond. She kept her eyes on her instruments and continued making tiny adjustments to her gravity field generator. Crix tried again. "Tell me, Hannah, when you were growing up on your savage world, did you live in trees like the other animals?" Still nothing. Hannah's fingers moved over the controls with steady precision. "Or maybe you lived in caves." "I bet you did. Humans probably love dark, dirty places because that is what you evolved from." Thies whispered, "Crix, stop it. She is trying to work." "Work?" Crix laughed. "You call this work? Watch a real civilized person operate advanced technology." He reached over to Hannah's control panel. "Let me show you how—" "Do not touch that," Hannah said without looking up. "Excuse me?" Crix said. "Did the little savage just give me an order?" "The calibration is very sensitive," Hannah explained calmly. "If you change anything now, we will have to start over." "I am not going to break your precious machine," Crix said. He was angry now because Hannah had told him what to do in front of other students. "I know more about advanced technology than you could learn in 10 lifetimes." He reached for her controls again. "Crix, do not," Minho started. But Crix had already grabbed the main calibration dial and twisted it hard to the right. The gravity field generator screamed. Alarms started beeping all over the lab. Their beautiful micro-wormhole collapsed in a flash of light that made everyone cover their eyes. When the alarms stopped, their workspace was a mess. 3 weeks of careful work was ruined. Expensive equipment was damaged. Other groups stopped their own work to stare at the disaster. Professor Velnox hurried over with 4 of her 6 arms waving in distress. "What happened here?" "Equipment," Malfunction, Crick said quickly. These old machines are not reliable. Hana stared at him. She could not believe he was lying so easily. That is not what happened, she said quietly. Of course it is, Crick said. You saw it yourself. The machine just failed. You twisted the calibration dial, Hana said. You broke it on purpose. Crix turned to face her with a look of injured innocence. Are you calling me a liar? Yes, Hana said simply. The lab was very quiet now. Even Professor Velnox seemed shocked. Students at Galactic Academy did not call each other liars. It was considered very rude. How dare you, Crick said. His voice was getting louder. How dare a primitive animal question my word? I am the son of Veltar Trading Consortium. My family has more honor than your entire species. Your family is not here, Hana said. Just you. And you broke our project. Crix's face turned an ugly color. He looked around the lab and saw that everyone was watching. Some of his friends were there, waiting to see what he would do. You will apologize, he said. Right now, in front of everyone. No, Hana said. What did you say? I said no. I will not apologize for telling the truth. That was when Crix made the biggest mistake of his life. He took a step toward Hana and shoved her backward with both hands. It was not a hard shove by his standards, just enough to make her stumble and show everyone who was in charge. But Hana had grown up on a world where gravity was twice as strong as normal. Her body was built to handle forces that would crush most aliens. Crix's shove barely moved her. She looked down at her chest where he had pushed her, then looked back up at his face. You should not have done that, she said very quietly. What are you going to do about it, animal? Crix sneered. He raised his hand and slapped her across the face. It was meant to be dismissive, like swatting an annoying insect. By galactic standards, it was barely even violence, just a way to put an inferior being in its place. The slap made a sharp sound in the quiet lab. Hana's head turned slightly to the side from the impact. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire lab seemed frozen in time. Hana slowly turned her head back to look at Crix. She raised one hand and touched her cheek where he had hit her. You hit me, she said, like she was explaining something to a child. Yes, I did, Crix said proudly. And I will do it again if you do not. He never finished the sentence. Hana stood very still for exactly 3 seconds. Her eyes never left Crix's face. Her breathing was slow and steady. In those 3 seconds, something changed in the air around them. The other students felt it but did not understand what it was. It was like the moment before lightning strikes, electric and dangerous and inevitable. This took a step backward without knowing why. Minho whispered, "Oh no." Professor Velnox opened her mouth to say something about academy rules and proper behavior. But it was too late. 3 seconds had passed, and Hana was no longer thinking like a civilized student at a peaceful academy. She was thinking like a human from Earth, where hitting someone meant you were ready to fight. And humans, as the galaxy was about to learn, were very, very good at fighting. Hana's first punch traveled less than 18 inches from her shoulder to Crix's face. It happened so fast that most students did not even see her move. One moment she was standing still, touching her cheek. The next moment, Crix was flying backward, through the air. The sound was terrible. Not just the thud of impact, but the wet, cracking noise of facial bones breaking. Crix hit the wall behind him and slid down to the floor, leaving a smear of alien blood on the white surface. For a heartbeat, everyone in the lab stared in shock. They had never seen real violence before. Their minds could not process what had just happened. Then Crix started screaming. It was a high, broken sound that barely seemed to come from a living throat. His face was wrong, twisted and caved in on one side. Purple blood ran from his mouth and nose. He tried to crawl away, but his movements were clumsy and confused. Hana took one step toward him, and he screamed louder. "Please," he gasped. "Please, do not." Hana grabbed the front of his uniform and lifted him off the ground. To her, he felt as light as a child. To him, her grip was like being caught in a machine. "You wanted to teach me about civilization," she said quietly. Her voice was perfectly calm, which somehow made it more frightening. "Let me teach you about consequences." She hit him again, this time in the stomach. Crix doubled over and vomited purple blood all over her shoes. The smell was awful, but Hana did not seem to notice. She pulled him upright again. "Stop," whispered This. "Please stop." But Hana was not listening to alien voices anymore. She was listening to older voices, the voices of her ancestors who had survived ice ages and predators and wars, the voices that said when someone hurts you, you hurt them back harder. She hit Crix a third time, an uppercut that lifted him completely off his feet. More bones broke. He landed on a lab table, scattering expensive equipment to the floor. He tried to roll away, but Hana was already there. She grabbed his arm, the one he had used to hit her, and twisted. The bones snapped like a dry stick. Crix's scream was so loud that it hurt to hear. Professor Velnox was frantically pressing buttons on her communication device, calling for help. Other students were backing toward the exits, but Minho was running forward. "Hana!" he shouted. "Hana, stop!" She turned to look at him. For a moment, he was not sure she recognized him. Her eyes were wild and bright, like an animal's eyes in the dark. "He hit me," she said, like that explained everything. "I know," Minho said carefully. "But you are going to kill him." Hana looked down at Crix. He was curled up on the floor, making small whimpering sounds. His arm bent at an impossible angle. His face was a ruin of broken bone and purple blood. "Maybe I should," she said. "No," Minho said firmly. "That is not who you are." "This is exactly who I am," Hana said. "This is what we are, what we have always been." She reached for Crix again, but Minho grabbed her wrist. "Hana, please, remember where you are. Remember why you came here." For a moment, they stood frozen like that. Minho holding her arm, Hana staring down at her broken enemy. The lab was completely silent except for Crix's ragged breathing. Then Hana blinked. The wild look faded from her eyes. She looked around. The lab, and saw the terrified faces of her classmates. She saw the blood on her hands and clothes. She saw what she had done. "Oh," she said quietly. She let go of Crix and stepped backward. He immediately tried to crawl away from her, leaving a trail of blood on the floor. Hana started to say something, then stopped. What was there to say? She had nearly beaten another student to death. In less than 30 seconds, she had. Destroyed everything she had worked for. Security forces burst into the lab. They were tall aliens in black uniforms with weapons that hummed with energy. But when they saw Hana standing there with blood on her hands, they stopped moving. They did not know what to do. In over 200 years, nothing like this had ever happened at Galactic Academy. "Miss Lee," said the security captain, "please step away from the injured student." Hana nodded and walked to the center of the lab. She put her hands up where everyone could see them. "I am not going to fight you," she said. "Please lie down on the floor," the captain said. "No," Hana said calmly. "I will sit in this chair and wait for you to decide what to do. But I will not lie on the floor like a criminal." The security captain looked confused. He had been trained to handle accidents and medical emergencies, not violent assault by Deathworld primitives. "Miss Lee, you are under arrest for—" "I know what I am under arrest for," Hana said. She sat down in one of the lab chairs and folded her hands in her lap. "I am waiting." Medical teams rushed in and began working on Crix. They loaded him onto a floating stretcher and hurried him out of the lab. As they passed Hana, one of the medics looked at her with pure fear. "How?" he whispered to his partner. How did she do so much damage so quickly? Deathworld anatomy, the other medic replied. Bone density twice normal standard. Muscle fiber built for high gravity. Reflexes evolved for predator response. They disappeared through the door, taking Crix to the medical center. Professor Velnox approached Hana carefully, as if she were a dangerous animal that might attack again. Miss Lee, she said, the Academy has rules about violence. I know, Hana said. I broke them. Why did you do this? Hana thought about the question. How could she explain to someone who had never been hurt that being hit meant something different to a human? How could she make them understand that respect had to be earned, not just demanded? He hit me first, she said finally. But that was just a small slap, Professor Velnox said. It was not meant to cause real harm. On my world, Hana said, there's no such thing as harmless violence. If you hit someone, you had better be ready for them to hit you back. But this is not your world, the professor said. No, Hana agreed. It is not. More security officers arrived. They surrounded Hana but kept their distance. They had all heard what she had done to Crix, and none of them wanted to test their luck against Deathworld's strength. Miss Lee, the security captain said, you will come with us now. Hana stood up. As she did, every alien in the room took a step backward. I am ready, she said. As they led her out of the lab, she could hear the other students whispering. Did you see how fast she moved? She nearly killed him with her bare hands. I heard Deathworlders were dangerous, but I never believed it until now. Do you think there are more of them like her? Minho and Sora followed the security team into the hallway. We will figure this out, Minho called to her. We will help you. Hana turned to look at them. For the first time since the fight, she smiled. It was a sad smile, but it was real. Thank you, she said. But I think I have taught them all the lesson they needed to learn. As the security team led her away, she could hear Professor Velnox talking to the remaining students. Class is dismissed for the day, the professor said. Please report to your counselors if you need to discuss what you witnessed. One student asked, Professor, will she be expelled? I do not know, Professor Velnox replied. This is unprecedented. We have never had a situation like this before. Hana smiled again as she walked down the hallway. No, they had never had a situation like this before, but they would remember it for a very long time. The news traveled fast. By the time Hana was locked in a security holding room, every student at Galactic Academy had heard some version of the story. Most of the versions were wrong, but they all agreed on one thing. The small human girl had nearly killed Crix Veltar with her bare hands. The holding room was small and white with no windows. They had given Hana a chair but no table or anything else she could use as a weapon. 2 guards stood outside her door at all times. She sat quietly and waited. There was nothing else to do. 3 hours later, Minho and Sora were allowed to visit her. They looked worried and scared. How are you feeling? Sora asked. Fine, Hana said. How is Crix? Alive, Minho said. They are doing surgery to rebuild his face. The doctors say he will recover, but it will take months. Hana nodded. Good. I did not want to kill him. The whole academy is talking about what happened, Sora said. Some students are afraid to be in the same building as humans now. And others are asking why Crix was allowed to harass you for weeks without any consequences, Minho added. What do you mean? Some students saw what really happened in the lab, Minho explained. They told the investigators that Crix destroyed your project on purpose and hit you first. That will not matter, Hana said. I still hurt him badly. The academy has rules about violence. Maybe, Sora said. But the rules also say students have the right to defend themselves. Before Hana could respond, the door opened. A tall alien in expensive robes walked in. He had golden skin and eyes like black diamonds. Everything about him looked important and powerful. "I am Administrator Coltharn," he said. "I run this academy." Hana stood up politely. "Administrator, sit down, Miss Lee. We need to discuss what happened today." Hana sat back down. Administrator Coltharn remained standing, which made him tower over her. "In 200 years, no student at this academy has ever seriously injured another student," he said. "We are very proud of our peaceful environment." "I understand," Hana said. "Do you? Do you understand that what you did today has destroyed something precious? This academy was a place where different species could learn together without fear." "Crix was not afraid when he hit me," Hana said quietly. "A small slap is not the same as attempted murder," the administrator said angrily. "On my world, it is the same thing," Hana replied. "If you hit someone, you are saying you are ready to fight them. This is not your world." "Everyone keeps telling me that," Hana said. "But no one told Crix that when he was calling humans animals and savages." Administrator Coltharn paused. "What do you mean?" "For 3 weeks, Crix insulted me and my people. Every day. He said we were primitives who did not belong here. He said we were barely one step above animals. Where I come from, those are fighting words. But words cannot hurt you," the administrator said. Hana looked at him for a long moment. "Can they not? If someone spent weeks telling your children that they were worthless animals, would that not hurt them?" "That is different. My children would know such words were not true. Would they? Or would they start to believe it after hearing it every day?" The administrator did not answer. "Crix was teaching other students that it was acceptable to treat humans like we were less than them," Hana continued. "He was teaching them that we would accept any insult because we were too weak or too scared to do anything about it." "So you decided to teach them something different?" "I did not decide anything," Hana said. "When he hit me, my body decided for me. Where I come from, you do not think about fighting. You just fight." "That is exactly the problem," Administrator Coltharn said. "Civilized beings think before they act. Civilized beings do not let bullies hurt others for weeks without doing anything to stop them," Hana said. The administrator looked angry, but before he could respond, another alien entered the room. This one was smaller and moved more carefully. "Administrator, we have completed our investigation," the new alien said. "Very well, Investigator Zephys. What did you find?" Investigator Zephys opened a folder and began reading. "We interviewed 23 students who witnessed the incident. We also reviewed security footage from the laboratory. And the evidence shows that Crix Veltar deliberately sabotaged Miss Lee's group project, then physically assaulted her when she objected to his actions." Administrator Coltharn frowned. "How many times did he hit her?" "Once, sir. A slap to the face." "And how many times did she hit him?" 3 times, sir. The first blow broke several facial bones. The second caused internal bleeding. The third broke his arm." "There you have it," the administrator said to Hana. "Completely disproportionate response." "Sir," Investigator Zephys said carefully, "there is more." "What more?" "We also investigated reports of ongoing harassment. Multiple students confirm that Crix Veltar has been systematically insulting and humiliating human students for weeks." "And why was this not reported before?" "The human students did report it, sir. 3 separate complaints were filed with student services." Administrator Coltharn looked surprised. "What action was taken?" "None, sir. The complaints were dismissed because they involved verbal disagreements rather than physical violence." The room was quiet for a moment. "I see," the administrator said slowly. "There is one more thing, sir," the investigator continued. "We have received over 40 reports from other alien students confirming the harassment. Many of them say they were uncomfortable with Crix's behavior, but did not know how to report it." "Why are they coming forward now?" because today's incident made them realize how serious the situation had become. Administrator Coltharn sat down in the room's other chair. He suddenly looked very tired. "What do you recommend, investigator?" "Sir, according to Academy regulations, any student who physically assaults another student should be expelled immediately." Hana felt her stomach drop. She had expected this, but it still hurt to hear. "However," the investigator continued, "the regulations also state that students have the right to defend themselves against physical attack." But her response was excessive, the administrator said. "By our standards, yes. But we have never had Deathworld students before. We did not consider how their evolutionary background might affect their responses to threats." "What are you saying?" "I am saying that Miss Lee's reaction, while shocking to us, was probably normal for her species. We cannot judge Deathworld behavior by civilized world standards." Administrator Coltharn rubbed his temples. "This is very complicated." "Yes, sir. But there is precedent for considering cultural differences in disciplinary cases." "What precedent?" "The crystalline incident of 2387. A crystalline student accidentally killed a gaseous student by exposing them to high-frequency vibrations. The crystalline student was not expelled because they had no way of knowing that their normal communication method was lethal to gaseous beings." "But that was an accident." "Yes, sir. But the principle is the same. Different species have different capabilities and responses. We cannot expect them all to behave like us." Hana listened to this conversation with growing hope. Maybe she would not be expelled after all. "There is one more factor to consider," the investigator said. "What now?" "The galactic media has picked up this story. It is spreading across dozens of worlds. They are calling it The Day the Deathworld Girl Fought Back." Administrator Coltharn groaned. "How bad is it?" "Some outlets are portraying Miss Lee as a violent savage who should never have been allowed into civilized society, but others are asking why the Academy allowed systematic harassment of minority students." "What is the general reaction?" "Mixed, sir. But many beings are expressing support for Miss Lee. They say she was defending herself and her people's honor." The administrator was quiet for a long time. "Miss Lee," he said finally, "what you did today was wrong by our standards. But I am beginning to understand that our standards may not apply to everyone." "I am sorry I hurt Crix so badly," Hana said. "But I am not sorry I defended myself." "I know," the administrator said. "And that, I think, is the problem we need to solve." The tribunal met 3 days later in the Academy's main auditorium. Hana had never seen so many different alien species in one place. Representatives from dozens of worlds had come to watch the proceedings, and the galactic media was broadcasting everything live. Hana sat at a small table in the center of the room. She wore a clean Academy uniform, but she could still feel the weight of everyone's eyes on her. Some looked at her with fear, others with curiosity, and a few with what might have been respect. The tribunal consisted of 5 beings, the Academy administrator and 4 others from the Galactic Education Council. They sat behind a curved desk that floated above the auditorium floor. "This hearing will determine the consequences for the incident involving students Lee Hana and Crix Veltar," announced the chief arbiter, an elderly being whose species Hana did not recognize. "We will hear testimony from witnesses and experts before making our decision." The first witness was Professor Velnox, who described what she had seen in the laboratory. Her testimony was accurate, but made Hana's actions sound brutal and terrifying. "Violence was immediate and overwhelming," Professor Velnox said. "I have never seen anything like it. Miss Lee showed no mercy or restraint." Next came several students who had witnessed the harassment over the previous weeks. They described how Crix had systematically insulted and humiliated the human students, while administrators ignored their complaints. He called them animals almost. "Every day," testified a nervous crystalline student. "He said they were too primitive to understand real education. I thought it was wrong, but I did not know what to do about it. Then Minho took the stand. Hana is not a violent person, he said, firmly. In 6 months at this academy, she never raised her voice or showed any aggression toward anyone. But where we come from, if someone hits you, it means they want to fight. Can you explain this cultural difference? Asked the chief arbiter. On Earth, physical violence is serious, Minho explained. We do not hit people to make a point or show dominance. If you hit someone, you are declaring yourself their enemy, and enemies fight back. But surely Miss Lee understood that academy customs are different, said one of the council members. Did Crix understand that human customs are different when he spent weeks calling us animals? Minho asked. Did anyone tell him that his words were hurting us? The tribunal had no answer for that. Dr. Thyan Kess, a xenopsychologist from the University of Rigel, testified as an expert witness about human psychology and evolution. Humans evolved on a Class 12 Deathworld, she explained. Their responses to threats are fundamentally different from civilized species. What we consider excessive force, they consider normal self-defense. Are you saying humans cannot control their violent impulses? Asked Administrator Coltharn. Not at all. Humans are capable of great restraint and peaceful cooperation. But they also have survival instincts that can override conscious thought when they perceive a serious threat. Was a single slap really a serious threat? To a human, yes. On their world, any physical attack could be the beginning of a fight to the death. Their instincts tell them to respond immediately and decisively. Dr. Kess showed brain scans and biological data that demonstrated how human physiology differed from other species. The tribunal listened with growing understanding. The interesting thing, Dr. Kess concluded, is that Miss Lee actually showed remarkable restraint. Her species is capable of far more damage than what Crix suffered. Finally, Hana was called to testify on her own behalf. Miss Lee, said the chief arbiter, do you regret your actions? I regret that Crix was hurt so badly, Hana said. I never wanted to send anyone to the hospital, but I do not regret defending myself. Do you understand that your response was considered excessive by galactic standards? Yes, I understand that. But I also understand that Crix's behavior was excessive by human standards. For weeks, he treated me and other humans like we were less than people. He destroyed our work and then hit me when I objected. In my culture, that makes him the aggressor. What would you have done differently, knowing what you know now? Hana thought about this carefully. I would have requested a transfer to different classes, so I did not have to work with Crix. But I would not have let him continue treating humans like animals, even if it meant fighting? Especially if it meant fighting. Sometimes fighting is the only language bullies understand. The room was very quiet. Miss Lee, said another council member, what do you think should happen to you? I think I should be punished for hurting another student, Hana said. But I also think the academy should be punished for allowing harassment that everyone knew was happening. What kind of punishment would be appropriate? I do not know. That is for you to decide. But whatever you do to me, it should be fair. And it should make sure this never happens to other students. The tribunal recessed for 2 hours to deliberate. Hana waited in a small room with Minho and Sora, trying not to think about being expelled and sent home in disgrace. When the tribunal reconvened, the auditorium was packed. Every seat was filled, and more beings watched from the hallways. The chief arbiter stood to read the decision. After careful consideration of all evidence and testimony, this tribunal finds that both students bear responsibility for the incident. Hana held her breath. Crix Veltar engaged in systematic harassment and physical assault. His actions created a hostile environment that ultimately led to violence. Lee Hana's response to that assault was excessive by galactic standards, but understandable given her species' evolutionary background. Therefore, the tribunal rules as follows. Crix Veltar is expelled from Galactic Academy effective immediately. His family's political influence will not protect him from the consequences of his actions. A gasp went through the audience. No one had expected Crix to be expelled. Lihana will serve a one-semester suspension, during which time she will undergo cultural integration counseling and anger management training designed specifically for Deathworld species. Additionally, Galactic Academy will implement new policies to prevent harassment based on planetary origin. All students and faculty will receive training on cultural sensitivity and the unique needs of Deathworld species. Finally, the Academy will establish a new program to help different species understand each other's customs and communication styles. Hana felt relief wash over her. She was not being expelled. She would be able to return to her studies. This incident, the chief arbiter continued, has taught us that true civilization means understanding and accommodating differences, not ignoring them. We cannot expect all species to behave the same way, but we can expect all species to treat each other with respect. As the tribunal dissolved, hundreds of beings approached Hana. Some wanted to shake her hand, others wanted to interview her for news reports. A few still looked at her with fear, but many more looked at her with something that might have been respect. A young alien student with bright blue skin stopped in front of her. "Miss Lee," the student said shyly, "I wanted to thank you." "For what?" "For showing us that it is okay to stand up for yourself. On my world, we are taught to always be polite and never make trouble. But sometimes, trouble finds you anyway." An older human man pushed through the crowd. Hana did not recognize him at first, then realized he was Dr. Marcus Chen, the head of the Human Exchange Program. "Hana," he said, "I came as soon as I heard. Are you all right?" "I am fine, Dr. Chen, but I think I may have made things more difficult for other human students." "Actually, I think you may have made things easier," Dr. Chen said. "The galaxy is finally starting to understand that humans are not just primitive barbarians. We are people with our own culture and customs that deserve respect." Over the next few weeks, as news of the incident spread across the galaxy, something unexpected happened. Instead of rejecting humans as too violent for civilized society, many worlds began requesting human students and workers. "Apparently," Minho told Hana during one of their counseling sessions, "there are a lot of bullies in the galaxy who have been getting away with bad behavior because no one was willing to stand up to them, and now they are afraid humans will stand up to them." Exactly. Some worlds are specifically requesting human security personnel and negotiators. They want people who are not afraid to fight if necessary. Hana smiled. "I guess there are advantages to having a reputation as a dangerous Deathworld savage. Just remember," Sora said, "with great power comes great responsibility. Other humans will be judged by what you did." "I know," Hana said. "I will try to be a good example." When Hana returned to classes the following semester, everything was different. Students who had once ignored or feared her now treated her with cautious respect. Professors made sure to explain cultural differences when discussing sensitive topics. And most importantly, no one was allowed to harass students based on their planetary origin. The Academy even started a new class called Interspecies Communication and Cultural Understanding. Hana was invited to be a guest lecturer, sharing her experiences and helping other students understand human customs. On her first day back, she walked into the advanced physics laboratory where everything had started. The equipment had been repaired and new safety protocols were in place. But the most important change was harder to see